In this video, I want to go over why in functional medicine, we use functional labs over conventional labs that you would typically get in your normal doctor's office, right? So, functional lab testing offers significant advantages over conventional lab testing, and especially when it comes to assessing not just overall health, but definitely when it comes to assessing fertility. Conventional lab tests typically only look at whether a marker falls within a standard reference range. But these broad ranges often fail to identify underlying imbalances that can contribute to symptoms and health issues. Whereas with functional lab testing, we can take a much deeper, more comprehensive look at the body's systems and the body's processes. So, there are several types of functional lab tests, but we're able to examine things like nutrient levels, hormone balances, immune function, gut health, and several other key markers that provide a very clear picture of what's going on beneath the surface. And by looking at the optimal functional ranges for these markers rather than just standard reference ranges, functional testing can detect imbalances much earlier before overt symptoms start to actually manifest. So, typically in conventional medicine, again, you get pretty basic labs that only scratch the surface. And it's far too often that doctors will simply kind of scan over the results and check to see if the markers are in normal range, right? But what's important here is we're not looking for normal ranges. We want optimal ranges. We don't want okay health. We want exceptional health, especially again when we're dealing with fertility. Fertility is an extremely delicate and finely tuned process that relies on complex hormonal, nutrient, and metabolic interactions. And conventional fertility testing might miss important underlying factors that could be disrupting ovulation, disrupting sperm quality, implantation, or other aspects of the reproductive process. But functional tests can identify things at a much deeper level, like insulin resistance and thyroid imbalance, vitamin and mineral deficiencies, inflammation, oxidative stress, gut microbiome imbalances, and several other subclinical issues that can negatively impact fertility, even if the standard tests come back quote unquote normal. So, just to kind of give an example here, let's say a woman goes into her doctor to check her sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and let's just take testosterone as an example marker here. So, conventional fertility testing might look at her total testosterone level and find it to be within that standard reference range, suggesting that her testosterone is normal, right? However, functional testing, such as the Dutch test, which is my go to, and several other functional medicine practitioners use this as well, can dive a lot deeper by also examining the specific metabolites and byproducts of testosterone, like dihydrotestosterone, DHT. So, even if a woman's total testosterone is technically within that normal range, functional testing might reveal that maybe her levels of DHT are abnormally high. And for those of you who aren't familiar, DHT is a much more potent, biologically active form of testosterone. And excess DHT can contribute to issues like irregular ovulation, difficulty conceiving, and even increase the risk of miscarriage, not to mention some really unfavorable symptoms like acne, especially on the jawline, oily skin, alopecia, hair growth in places that she doesn't want hair growth. So, this imbalance between testosterone and its metabolites would be totally missed by conventional testing that only looked at just that total testosterone number. But again, we get this extra layer of insight with functional testing, allowing us to identify and address the underlying DHT dominance in that example, which conventional testing would have overlooked as the testosterone itself appeared to be normal. And just to provide a few more examples here of how functional testing dives a lot deeper and gives us a lot more information than conventional testing. So let's talk about thyroid function. So, standard thyroid tests that check for things like TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, might fall within the normal range, but functional testing can identify more subtle thyroid imbalances. For example, elevated reverse T3, which most doctors never check, indicate thyroid resistance, which can have effects like impairing ovulation and fertility, even if TSH on that conventional lab was normal. Another example is nutrient deficiencies. Basic fertility panels typically just check for gross nutritional deficiencies, but functional testing can provide a much more comprehensive assessment of key fertility supporting nutrients like vitamin D, folate, zinc, omega 3s, and several others. And as a side note on nutritional markers, what's in the normal range on a lab test for nutrient levels is not what is, again, optimal for health. And it definitely isn't optimal when we're talking about fertility and optimizing fertility. So, identifying and addressing subtle deficiencies in these areas can make a really big difference. We look at other tests that we don't get in conventional medicine, like checking for detoxification capacity. So, having slow or impaired detoxification pathways can negatively impact hormonal balance and therefore fertility. Looking at methylation imbalances. So, having proper methylation, which in basic terms is the process of adding methyl groups to DNA and to other molecules. And this is a process that is crucial for overall health, but really crucial for fertility. It's also crucial for fetal development and for pregnancy outcomes. Functional tests that look at genetic polymorphisms and metabolites related to methylation can really hone in and identify areas of impairment, whereas this is typically not something you're going to get with your basic conventional fertility panel. And keep in mind, that is if your doctor is running any labs at all for fertility screening. And then just a couple more examples here, testing for things like oxidative stress. Okay, so having high levels of oxidative stress, which can damage cells and impair reproductive function, often go totally undetected with basic testing. It's just not something that is done on a standard lab test. Functional panels that measure oxidative stress biomarkers like 8-OHDG can pinpoint this as an underlying contributor to infertility. And then there's tests that test for mitochondrial function. So testing for the health and efficiency of the mitochondria, right? The powerhouses of our cells. Checking this organelle's health plays a major role in egg and sperm quality. And specialized functional tests can evaluate mitochondrial markers like CoQ10, carnitine, and several organic acids to uncover mitochondrial dysfunction as a driver of infertility. So, by taking this expansive, systems based approach, functional lab testing enables us as practitioners to identify the unique, multifactorial contributors to a patient's fertility challenges. And it's this level of detail that simply is not possible with standard limited testing panels. And it's these tests that we use in functional medicine that really allow us to develop truly personalized treatment plans to optimize fertility potential. All right, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you now have a clear understanding of why it's crucial to use functional tests over conventional testing, especially when we are working with fertility and with reproductive health.